How did I meet my wife, and why did you marry her? Oh, well, I'll tell you one of the earliest memories I have of my wife, because it kind of tells you what she's like. Eh? So she lived across the street from me in this little town that we grew up in called Fairview, Alberta. And I think I fell in love with her the moment that I saw her. And although I don't think the feeling was necessarily mutual. And so I was about like 7, I think, something like that. So I've known her for like 48 years. And here's one memory, because there are 2 memories I'll tell you. So one of them was when I was in grade 5, I got glasses. And I was pretty proud of these glasses. They were horn-rimmed glasses, and I was pretty proud of them. And I went out and she came out onto the street and she looked at my glasses. I said, "What do you think of those?" And she says, "I think you look really funny in those." And then she pointed at me and ran into her house. And it was like 20 years later that she finally told me that she had always wanted to have glasses and she was jealous about it. But, she decided she'd give me a good teasing and a good poke. And then we used to play croquet together. And one of the great delights she would take is, I don't know if you've ever played croquet, but, you're sometimes the one person's ball that they're hitting and another person's will come together, and then you can stand on your ball and you can nail it with the croquet mallet and like knock the other person's croquet ball halfway down the block. And she used to think that was pretty damn amusing when she did it to me. So, but yeah, I told my dad when I was in grade 5, I was sitting with her on this big armchair in our living room, and she was sitting beside me on the armchair, which I was pretty damn thrilled about. And she was being chased around by all the boys in the school at that point, even though that was in the elementary school, So she was very hot property, let's say, among the elementary school boys. And so I was pretty happy to have her sit by me. And so, anyways, she left, and I told my dad that I was going to marry her. And I remember that, and he told that story at our wedding, which was quite cute. And then I'll tell you one more story, which I really think is funny. This is so funny. So we were friends when we were kids, and then, girls mature faster than boys, and she's a year older than me because I skipped a grade in school. We were in the same grade in school. And so, when she hit about 13 or so, we kind of went our separate ways a little bit, although we still remained friends. And she had a paper route, and I took her paper route over when she hit 13 or so, and I like quadrupled the damn thing, I think, which I think is pretty funny. But I also delivered paper to her house, and one day she was there with another of her friends, and who was kind of a cute chick too, and I liked her quite a bit. And they were sitting around talking about how they were feminists, roughly speaking. And they were talking when I walked in about the fact that neither of them were going to take their husband's last name when they got married. And Tammy, my wife, I think, said to her friend, "Well, that really means I'm going to have to find some wimp and marry him." And she turned around and looked at me and smiled evilly and said, "Hey, Jordan, do you want to get married?" And of course I'd heard the whole conversation, and she knew I liked her, obviously, and so that was a nice little comical dig. She has a very vicious sense of humor. And I kind of laughed, and I thought, ha ha ha, okay, yeah, okay, so fine. So then when I was like 28, and she had come to see me in Montreal, and we were talking about getting married, and she said, we were talking about what that would mean. And then we started talking about what the name would be. And I said, "Hey, I've got a story for you. Remember when you were 13 and I was delivering papers to your house?" And because I suggested that she take my last name, and she wasn't so sure about that. And I said, "Well, you remember that little story, that little episode that we had when you were 13 and I came over to your house and you told me that you weren't going to take your husband's name and that you're going to have to marry some wimp?" Said, "Okay, well, here I am, but, if we're going to get married, you're going to take my name." And that's the end of that argument. And so, she had the good graces to go along with that, but that was actually, extraordinarily comical and ridiculous. So, yeah, so that's a good one.